We're going to do a full NFL playoff picture breakdown on today's episode. But on last week's video about the playoff picture, we got 538 likes. So if you want to keep the good times rolling, hit that thumbs up button. Let's beat 600 likes on today's episode. What's going on, Broncos Country? Welcome on into the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. On today's episode, with the team going into the bye, I just want to peek at the current playoff picture, talk about Denver's path to maybe winning the AFC West, and what jockeying they could do in the wild card race to improve their seeding. First, let's just look at the actual playoff picture as things currently stand following 13 weeks this year. So Denver, sitting at 8-5, holds the 7 seed. They do not have the tiebreaker head-to-head over the Ravens, but we'll do a deeper dive on both the Ravens and the Chargers, and also look at the Steelers a little bit, who I know are all the way at the 3 seed, but if the Ravens were to overtake Pittsburgh for the AFC North, then the Steelers would fall to the wild card spot, and there would be some jockeying there for Denver to improve their seeding. But overall, right now, Denver's in a very good spot. They go into their bye week, so it's a nice time for them to get some extra rest. They come out of it. They have 4 games remaining, and New York Times playoff calculator has them at a 78% chance to make the playoffs. If they beat the Colts coming out of the bye in week 15, it jumps all the way up to 91% chance. So right now, Denver is in a good spot, but you definitely want to add some, insurance runs in this case. So let's talk about the path to maybe winning the AFC West. I didn't give this part much airtime last week, and I'm not going to give it too much airtime this week because it is still relatively unlikely. Right now, Denver is actually 3rd in the AFC West behind the Chargers, who have a half-game lead. They've already had their bye, and they are a solid 3 games back from the Kansas City Chiefs. So there is a lot of ground to make up and not a ton of time to do it because Denver goes into their bye week, and then they come out of that and play the Colts, Chargers, Bengals, and Chiefs at home in Week 18. So maybe if they were to win these 3 games, and if you look at the Chiefs' schedule, they would need to lose a lot of their games. They could have a shot at making that Week 18 game a chance to win the division if the Chargers also fall off a little bit, but I'm not going to sink my teeth into this one here. This is a pipe dream to me. The Chiefs just have too big of a lead, and although they are frauds, they would have to lose 2 more games, and I think they will, more than 2 games. I think they will lose 2 more games, but I don't think that they are going to fall all the way out of first in the AFC West, although I do think their time at the top of the division is going to come to an end in the near-ish future, but just not this year, unfortunately. Now, let me know, are the Chiefs frauds? I see one of 2 paths for Kansas City. They're either going to lose in the first round of the playoffs at home, or they are going to win the Super Bowl. There will be no in-between, right? They are either going to do what they did last year, which is kind of figure out their skeletons from the regular season and let Mahomes, Reed, and Kelsey be everything they can be in the postseason, or their fraudulent play is going to catch up to them, and they're not going to get that break that they have gotten so many times. There will be no illegal shift instead of a false start. Isaiah Likely will not be out of bounds. There will be no blocked field goal. There will be none of those fraction differences in all those games, and Kansas City will lose in the first round. Or they're just going to win it all. Those are the two options. But let me know, are the Chiefs frauds? I think they are. Now, next up on the show, I want to look over some of the wild card seeding and jockeying and positioning that's going on, because this, to me, is what we should be paying much closer attention to. Sure, winning the division would be awesome, but it's just too big of a lead and not enough time to overtake Kansas City. So let's look at some of the contenders for the wild card spot, starting with the Baltimore Ravens. They too go into the bye. They come out of it, and they play a Giants team that's not good at all. They are starting Drew Lock this upcoming week, so get ready for that. And then after that, Steelers, Texans, Browns. Playoff team, frisky team. The Browns beat the Steelers last week, and they made it close with Denver this past Monday night, so they're not going to be an easy walkthrough game, probably like the Giants, in my opinion, would be. But the Ravens, they have a bit of a difficult schedule coming up, and remember, they do have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Denver, but they currently are tied with Denver, so every single loss for Baltimore is an opportunity for Denver to jump ahead of the Ravens. Meanwhile, I just want to peek at the Steelers before we do a deep dive on the Chargers, because the Chargers, in my opinion, is the one we should really be paying attention to. But if the Ravens were to pass the Steelers in the division, then Pittsburgh comes down to the wild card race. They have 5 games remaining. They've got the Browns this Sunday, who they just lost to 2 weeks ago. Then they go to Philly, and then they go to Baltimore on a short week, and then they come home and play the Chiefs, and then they have the Bengals to round out the year. This is a brutal end to the season. The Browns is going to be the easiest game of the bunch, most likely, if you're just going off opposing records, but they just lost to Cleveland, so it can't be too easy of a game. And then gauntlet, gauntlet, gauntlet. 3 games in a row against some of the best teams, some of the best records in the NFL. So I like the chances of the Ravens passing the Steelers, and the Broncos no longer really need to playing catch up with Baltimore, but trying to pass Pittsburgh, who unfortunately owns the tiebreaker over Denver. Now, before we talk all about the Chargers, because that's where I want your eye to be, I do want to give a big shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Let me give you an example of what selections look like for, say, Thursday night. Taking the more on Jahmyr Gibbs. We got the less on Christian Watson. So if you like these selections, download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video, because I love you all, and I know you probably didn't write that down. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Week 16 for Denver on the road against the Chargers, Thursday Night Football, is the biggest game on their schedule, in my opinion. This is going to be the turning point for the Broncos when it comes to whether or not they can improve their playoff seeding. If they lose to the Chargers, not only is it going to put them further behind the Chargers in the wild card race to improve their seeding, but it's also going to give the Chargers the season series sweep and thus the tiebreaker over Denver. So they really fall behind like 2 games, right? Not only do you try to get back to tie the Chargers, but you got to overtake the Chargers, and you'd only have week 17 and 18 to do that after week 16. So let's look a little bit closer at the Chargers here. They've got a decently tough schedule coming up. Chiefs on the road, Sunday Night Football this upcoming week. Then they come home and play a Buccaneers team that's been really hot lately, winning a couple of road games. And then they got the Broncos on Thursday night, at New England, and at Las Vegas. So they have 2 pretty easy games to round out the year, if we're being honest, but 3 very difficult games going into that. So the path for the Broncos is have them lose these 3 games, win these 2 games here, and as long as Denver just doesn't lose more than 1 game, they are going to be in front of the Chargers for the wild card seeding. Now, let's say the Broncos beat the Chargers on Thursday night, but the 2 teams finish with the same record, okay? What happens then? Well, the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. We can toss that one out the window because it would be an even series split. So the second tiebreaker is division win percentage. How do both teams fare in the AFC West? Well, there's still a handful of AFC West games remaining for both teams, but right now the Chargers have the slight lead. However, all this would only matter if the Broncos beat the Chargers, and if they beat the Chargers, well, you can give Denver an extra AFC West win, and you can give the Chargers an extra AFC West loss. So let's just look at the Chargers' schedule again here and see how many AFC West games they have remaining. I mean, they've got the Chiefs coming up, then the Broncos, then the Raiders. And again, this is only under the theory of Denver wins on Thursday night. Well, if Denver wins on Thursday night, and let's assume the other games go as chalk, and the Chargers lose this game and they win this game, they are currently 2-1 in the AFC West, and they would fall to 3-3, right? Add an extra win over the Raiders, but pick up 2 losses. Reed, can we peek at the Broncos' remaining schedule for a moment? So if the Chargers, I know it's a little confusing, finish with a 3-3 AFC West record, Well, Denver currently at 2-2. We're counting this as a win. That's 3-2. If they were to beat the Chiefs, then they would be 4-2, and they would have the AFC West tiebreaker. But it's no gimme they're going to beat the Chiefs in Week 18. So stick with me for a second here. Let's just say Denver wins Week 16, but loses Week 18. Well, now both teams finish with the identical AFC West record of 3-3. So we move on to the third tiebreaker, which is win percentage in common games. This is a very confusing one, but each division plays two other divisions every single NFL season. And this year, the AFC West played the NFC South and the AFC North. So how did the Broncos and the Chargers fare in these common games? Well, they've played most of them already. However, there are two outstanding ones. Denver beat Tampa. The Chargers play the Buccaneers in 2 weeks. We are rooting for the Buccaneers in this game if you want the Broncos to make the playoffs. Both teams beat the Saints, the Panthers, the Falcons. Both teams lost to the Ravens. Both teams beat the Browns. However, the Broncos have not played the Bengals yet, and the Chargers have played the Bengals, and both teams lost to the Steelers. So, if the Chargers lose to the Buccaneers, but the Broncos lose to the Bengals, then they are even in common games. So we take it one step further. And after that, it's AFC win percentage. So, ready for this? Let's look at their records in the AFC, and then we'll look at their remaining schedules. So the Chargers currently have the leg up in the AFC. They have a 5-3 record. They both played 8 games in the AFC. The Broncos have a 4-4 record. So, read really quickly, can we peek at both the Broncos and Chiefs schedules remaining and identify some AFC games that might be easier or more difficult? So, looking at the Broncos or Chargers schedule here, so they've got the Chiefs coming up, the Broncos, Patriots, Raiders. If, let's just say it goes like somewhat chalk, meaning loss, preferred loss, and then win-win. They are currently, 5-3, so they would finish 7-5 in the AFC altogether. Meanwhile, let's look at Denver's schedule remaining because they are currently 4-4. So can they find 3 more AFC wins? They only play AFC teams. So it is there for the taking, right? Colts win, Chargers win, and all they got to do is win one of these 2 games. But again, if they were to win one of these 2 games, that would make the previous tie-breaking procedures a whole lot easier. The common game one with the Bengals or the AFC West record one by beating the Chiefs. So right now, it all comes down to really just one thing. Thursday Night Football in LA, because that's going to be the thing that can get Denver on the inside track to have a higher seed over the Chargers. If they fail to win that game, LA has the tiebreaker, and Denver just has to finish the outright better record, which would be very difficult to do with just a lack of games remaining and not an easy schedule as well, ending the season in Cincinnati and then at home against Kansas City. So that, in a nutshell, is what we are looking at right here when it comes down to how the Broncos can improve their seeding. I know it's a little bit of a roller coaster journey, but the short answer is just win your games, especially that Thursday night game. So currently Denver sits at 8-5. How many wins do you think they are going to finish with? We're going to look at my playoff predictions in just a second here, but I do want to hear from everyone watching, so don't be afraid to scroll on down and give me a number down below for how many wins the current 8-5 Broncos are going to finish with. Let's look at my predictions here. This is what I think is going to happen for all these teams for the remaining schedule. I think the Bills are going to finish at the top and have the bye with a 14-3 record. The Chiefs also go 14-3. However, they have Buffalo has the tiebreaker over Kansas City. Then you've got the Ravens going 11-6. I just think Baltimore is too good of a team to not get back on track to close out the year. Texans are frauds, so I think they're going to drop a couple more games, and they're going to win a bad AFC South with a 9-8 record. Then you've got the Chargers at 11-6, having the tiebreaker over the Broncos. Unfortunately, that's just what the computer spit out after all those tie-breaking procedures we just went through. And then the Steelers finishing 10-7 after a very difficult schedule to close out the year. I think the Ravens pass them. That's my AFC playoff prediction. My NFC playoff prediction, I've got the Lions going all the way to the bye with a 15-2 mark. The Eagles stay hot. They go 14-3. The Buccaneers are heating up once again at the end of the year, and I think they could go all the way to 10-7 to get the 3 seed ahead of the Arizona Cardinals, who were my kind of preseason darling pick or sleeper pick, and I think they're going to win the NFC West. You've got the Packers, Vikings, and Commanders closing out the wild card spot. So there it is. Update a look at the playoff picture. I know it's very complex, and we are really only just now entering the appropriate time to start paying super close attention to it because there's still a lot of football games left, but you can get a better picture as pieces start to get into place as to what we are watching and rooting for. All right, thank you all so much for tuning in, and a big thank you to the Blue and Orange Club for going above and beyond to support the channel, especially our 2 latest additions, Daniel and Charles. If you want to get added to the club, come hang out with us during our watch parties. We'll have one in 2 weeks for the Broncos-Colts game.